Good morning, everybody. Good morning, grandmas. Today is Saturday, September 2nd. We are going to hit 1 million views today, and what better way to celebrate than doing a dual overhead cam timing belt on a 2005 Kia Sedona. Being the weekend means I get access to my mom's car a little bit easier. Right at this very moment, I am on my way to Walmart. I'm gonna grab some distilled water, R134A refrigerant. I'm gonna go to the auto parts store, get the rest of the things that I need that I've actually been waiting on in the mail, but they just haven't come yet. Bite the bullet, just get it a little bit more expensive. Wrench on this timing belt. But before that, I want to show everyone what I sold. Pokemon Ranger sold for $12.47 on Amazon. Orange bottom, gray top Sperry's for 29 bucks. Street Fighter 2's Special Champion Edition for the Genesis with the Goodwill sticker on the back sold for 8 bucks. Bottom to flip on Amazon. The prices tanked on Amazon. They sat in storage for a while and I got them shipped back. Finally, they're damaged. This sold for $13.50 on eBay. Sold another one for $13.50 on eBay. Pokemon Fire Red for the Game Boy Advance for $27.90. Dragon Warrior 3 for the NES. Dragon Warrior 3 for the NES for $52 plus $4 shipping. That was a good one. And to make it the trifecta, we did sell this Mickey Mouse vintage tee on Etsy for 30 bucks shipped to California. Orders are done, 8 going out today. Just got done dropping these 8 packages off at the post office. I was extremely frustrated yesterday. I went to bed early, cleaned up the garage a little bit. Today is a new day. I am attacking this timing belt with full force. As a disclosure for everyone watching this who's just interested in the timing belt, I've never done a timing belt job before, and this is actually a really complicated, one of the more complicated ones. It's a dual overhead cam on a 3.5 liter Mitsubishi or Hyundai clone engine that's in the Kia Sedona. This is a 2005. Everyone tells me I'm an idiot for trying to do this, that I'm wasting my time, but I like to learn, I like to grow, I like to challenge myself, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to attempt to do it. Surgery is planned for today. It's going to be a weird video for all my subscribers that watch for the resale content. But if you could just thumb the video up so people that want to find the information about the Kia Sedona will be able to find it in the search engine, I would appreciate it. It's gonna be very raw, uncut. My experience changing a timing belt may be something that could help somebody else accomplish this task in the future. There was a lot of information that I've been studying online, particularly Jamie, I think it's Jamie the car guy. I'll link to his Kia Sedona videos in the corner. He had 2 that he did. One, I think they actually were Sorrentos. The engine was mounted a little bit differently, but it's still extremely helpful walking you through the process, a lot of tips of what to do on this job, and that was my main study source. I probably watched that video 3 or 4 times. We are going to hit 1 million views today, and what better way to celebrate than doing a dual overhead cam timing belt on a 2005 Kia Sedona. 4 gallons of the distilled water at 88 cents a piece. I am going to be flushing this toilet radiator, so I'm going to get some flushing cleaner. I hope this is the right stuff. All right, why is 12 ounces of this 20 bucks? And 12 ounces of this is only 5 bucks. This says 75,000 miles, and this one has Cool Boost technology, but what the heck is Cool Boost technology? We sell guns at Walmart in Florida. I'm gonna get these universal joint sets. They're only 6 bucks. And those are good to have. I don't have these at the house, and I think that can make it easier to remove bolts. So we're gonna get a set of these. There's the 3 for $2.50 each, and then there's the set for 6 bucks. We're gonna go with the set. And they also got snap ring pliers for a little bit cheaper than Home Depot. I should have came here and got these. Someone recommended me getting some penetrating oil, so I'm gonna get that. It's only a couple bucks. This is why I love doing stuff yourself. It's an excuse to buy new tools. I'm going to say this again. This video, this vlog is going to be very car oriented, very wrenchy. My fingernails are already black from yesterday, but I'm gonna go over what I've been doing, kind of explain a little bit more. Right now, the AC compressor that's on, this is the new AC compressor. The one that's on the car, these parts came out of. They are all fried. They look like they've been burnt in an oven. The pulley bearing failed. That was the pulley bearing at one point. The pulley bearing failed, causing this to overheat every time it spins, which causes a lot of heat friction there, which melted our clutch and also melted our magneto. So we are replacing the entire AC compressor because I stripped a bolt in it yesterday. So we're gonna install the new AC compressor and components. This is a rebuilt one I got off of eBay, $108 or $110, something like that. The people sent it to me. This is not the right connector. However, they did mail me another magneto that has the correct connector on it. So we're going to get the car in. My mom just put down some cardboard and a piece of plastic to protect the concrete. I've already pulled off, this is like the bottom grate plate. I've pulled off the air intake, this like metal bar that goes in between. I pulled off the right timing belt cover, the engine cover, a couple of other things. I've got the fans off already. Some tools you will need if you're working on the AC. You're gonna need a scale. Luckily I sell on eBay and Amazon, so I have a postal scale right here. That's to measure the oil, that's to measure the refrigerant whenever you're installing it. You're gonna need snap ring pliers to get off the snap ring if you're changing your coil magneto and stuff. Basic hand tools. I have an impact driver and I have a air wrench. You're gonna need a floor jack. You're gonna probably need a breaker bar. I have a torque wrench that I got from AutoZone over here. Free tool rental. I got a vacuum evacuator from AutoZone, rented that. These are all expensive to rent, but as soon as I bring them back, I get my deposit back. I think renting all these tools was like 400 bucks. I got my AC manifold gauges from AutoZone for free. I have all of these parts that I had ordered. This is what we're doing today. We're doing the timing belt. So I got a timing belt kit. I got a timing belt kit off of eBay. They sell them on Amazon as well. I got the timing belt kit. I think it was like 100 bucks. Came with the timing belt, some of the pulleys that go inside the timing belt. Comes with the seals. It comes with a water pump, and it also comes with the hydraulic tensioner. I think that's what this is. Yeah, the hydraulic tensioner right here. I did buy some cam locks, some cam gear locks, so when I do the timing, it's not going to move around. Probably can get away with not doing that. And I also have new belts for my power steering and my drive belt. So I'm replacing power steering belt, drive belt, timing belt, water pump, AC compressor, all that jazz. Labor and everything, it'd be probably over $1,000 bucks. I'm 1,200 bucks into this Kia. It's a 2005 with 84,000 miles on it. Previous owner ditched it as soon as it needs a time. It's supposed to have a timing belt change at 60,000 miles. So it's been neglected for 24,000 miles. My AC compressor is broken because the bearing failure. So actually the compressor itself is probably fine, but the assembly and everything is fried. And then I stripped a bolt in there on that AC compressor yesterday, so that's why I'm gonna swap it out anyways. So that is what's going on right here. Here's a look under the hood of everything that I had done yesterday. Fans are gone. AC compressor is unbolted down here. I should be able to take off the AC hoses and pull that out today. Removed this crossbar right here. That is this thing right here. It was 6 bolts and then 2 connectors to the horn and then 2 bolts that went on right here. That's gone, makes more room in here. And I got off the right timing belt cover. We're gonna have to take off the left timing belt cover, the bottom timing belt cover, the harmonic balancer, some of the other stuff. I'm gonna get this thing jacked up, get the wheel off. And as a disclaimer, I am not a car mechanic. Any work you do to your own car is your own liability. If you get hurt or injured or die, that is your fault. I am showing this as a documentation of my life. And if somebody out there can use some piece of information to add to their knowledge base, by all means do it. I really don't know what I'm doing. I've never worked on cars before. I have worked on motorcycles back in college, but this is actually my first time working on a car other than like an oil change. I don't even think I've ever done a coolant flush on a car. Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing working in sandals. I have on polo shorts that are gross and the same stinky shirt as yesterday. So that's just a disclaimer. Do everything at your own risk. Car is on the jack stands. If you do not do this correctly, this is gonna be one of the steps that could put your life in danger. And yesterday I took off this cover right here. Gives me access a little bit to where I have to take off some of the belts, the pulleys, take off the drive belt, and that tensioner pulley right there I got off. And then you have to use this access port to get some of these pulleys and bolts. So it's just a piece of plastic cover right there. Rubber gloves are going on mostly because I just banged my knuckle into this sharp radiator and I'm bleeding. To remove the AC compressor, there are, well, four of the big bolts that bolt it to wherever it's bolted to, and then there are two 6mm hexes, one right here and one right there, that have to come off to get this. I think this is called a manifold, to get that manifold off so I can get the AC compressor out. All right, AC compressor manifold, I just lifted up here, and then I'm moving the AC compressor over to lift it out. My first glove is already taking a casualty in less than 5 minutes. Your AC compressor, which is a flip switch. There's a little switch cover you have to flick up, and then you press down and it lifts it out like that. So here's the old compressor. There is some gunk in there. I wonder if that is like not supposed to be there. I don't think that was supposed to be there. There's like some sort of gunk. The low pressure side, and this is your high pressure side. So this is the burnt coil, magneto, whatever you call it, that was on this yesterday. And then I tried pressing on the replacement one that this company sent me because this one had wire issues. Yesterday's video I kind of showed that. So I'm gonna remove this from the broken compressor. Oh, so there's my busted bolt. I busted the bolt in there yesterday. That's another reason why I have to remove this compressor completely and swap it out. I'm gonna pull this magneto off and then put this magneto on. A pry bar should be enough to get it off. And it's a lot easier to get off of the car than it is on the car. I'm just prying, spinning, prying, spinning a little bit, prying. There's a metal ring that I'm prying up against, so I don't believe that it's damaging the magneto, and then there it comes off right there. This one off of the bad compressor should come off fairly easily because it wasn't on very hard yesterday. This is the connector that you want for this 2005 Kia Sedona. That is what it looks like. That is the correct connector. And then to get this on, I'm going to line it up with the ground, seat it. I got some leftover wood from my play button, and I'm just going to tap it a little bit on a couple of different corners. There are no corners because it's a circle, but I'm just gonna tap it. And that black ring should seat against that. It should seat flush against the AC compressor. We're gonna have to connect our ground, which is right there. I'm gonna reuse this bolt. I like this bolt as long as it fits in there. It's a better bolt than what it came with. The kit came with this bolt. It's just a Phillips head. This one has like a lock washer on it, and I feel like it's gonna make a better connection, so we're gonna use that bolt, 8mm. You don't want to over tighten this because it will just like strip. I think this is made out of aluminum. Now we're gonna install our pulley, and I've already ripped my second pair of gloves. The pulley just sits on top of this magneto. It should go in there fairly easily, just like that. Spin it, play with it, make sure it spins freely, make sure it's seated well, and then we're gonna do the lock ring. So we got this bad boy right here. And we have our lock ring tool from yesterday. We're gonna get that lock ring back in. And getting that lock ring is so easy with the right tool. Put it in, squeeze, and then manipulate it to where it needs to be. And then the lock ring locks in place. Holds that assembly together, almost done. If you're rebuilding it yourself, there are some spacer washers in here that creates the correct distance from the clutch and the pulley. And you want to make sure you put the right amount of spacers in. There's a feeler. From what I found online, the gap is supposed to be 0.02 to 0.028 inches between the clutch and the pulley. I have some feeler gauges that have been in my toolbox forever. This is the first time I actually get to use them. I'm excited. I am barely able to fit the 0.18 feeler gauge in there. It's in there, but it's not in there smoothly. So I'm gonna add one more spacer. And this is what the spacers look like. They came in the replacement kit that the company sent me when I was complaining about that broken wire right there. And both of my gloves are broken now. And now my 0.25 can go in, my 0.28 cannot, and my 0.22 can. So I think I'm within spec. The pulley is spinning freely. There is an air gap between the clutch and the pulley, and my bolt is tight. So I think we are good. Time to fill this baby with oil and rip more of my glove. And you can see the itty bitty air gap in between the clutch and the pulley. And that's what gets sucked in via magnet when you press the AC button on your car. It goes whoosh, and sucks that in and then spins that spindle. And this is when we're gonna use the scale. I have this oil that is going to lubricate my compressor and AC system. I'm supposed to put 4 ounces in, I believe. So I'm taking off that intake port. What do I got on there? 9.2 ounces. So I'm gonna bring that down to 5.2 ounces, and that will be 4 ounces poured into here. I just punctured a little hole in it, and now I'm squeezing the oil into there slowly. And we are at 5.2. This is full of the correct amount of oil. I've spun the compressor a couple times. I can hear it sucking, pushing. It sounds great. You do want to be mindful when you reinstall this. Either bolt those little caps back on while you're finagling it back under the hood, or keep it oriented upwards the whole time, because if you tip it, that oil is going to spill out. But before we do that, I'm going to put some new gloves on. You might notice I'm wearing sandals. It's hot in Florida. This helps keep me a little bit cooler. I am sweating like crazy. So we wear sandals, but it's not a good idea. Dropping the new compressor back in. I already have the bolts in the holes where they're supposed to go. Just to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to finagle it over there and then bolt back on the AC manifold to these 6mm hex bolts right there. I'm actually just going to leave it down there unbolted for now. That's going to give me a little bit more room if I need to wiggle some stuff while I work on the timing belt. I got the front right cover off. I did that a couple days ago just to look at the belt. I'm going to start pulling the pulleys off of this side. And I need to get that timing belt cover also off. There are bolts around it and then little clips for wires. And you just take a pliers underneath on the back side of the clips. Take a needle nose, squeeze it, and they'll pull right out. I'm gonna get some of the bolts from the bottom for that timing cover. There's one here, and I think there's one up here somewhere. You can feel around for it. But I wanted to document how much tension is on this power steering drive belt. Ooh, I got a little bit of a power steering fluid leak there. This is how much tension is on it. I can twist it 90 degrees fairly easily, a little bit over, almost completely around. I'm gonna replace this belt too. There's a little bit of wear right there. And then this is the belt tensioner right there. And this is the harmonic balancer. This crank bolt is going to be the bane of my existence getting that thing out. And this is a 22mm. My gloves are already destroyed. I'm trying to get this crank bolt off. I am going to try the bump method. I've never done this before. This is very dangerous. You should not do it. I'm only documenting to do this to show my friends and family how I died, if I died doing it. I have this brake bar to a 22 socket, bungeed against this part of the car. So when I bump the car to start it, it'll real quick. This will spin. It's locked on that way. It's locked on that way. This should loosen the bolt. We'll see. So I'm gonna reconnect the battery for a split second while I try to bump the starter. I call that the one-handed CP bungee cord stupid method. How to bump a crank bolt. Yeah. A subscriber just messaged me his number. He's like, call me before you do the timing belt. Let's see what he has to say. Hey, is this Mario?
Yes, this is me.
What's up, dude? This is Eric, CP. What's going on? What's this timing belt?
What's going on?
What's this timing belt magic you have?
Okay, check this out.
Just talked to Mario. He gave me a rundown of basically everything I need to do. I knew some of it. He did give me some good tips and just reminded me of the things that I needed to do. The tip that he gave me is to remove the spark plugs to relieve the pressure when I'm turning the crank. Sprockets don't move. I do have cam locks, so I'm going to try it with the cam locks. and see if that works. And if it does, said pull the spark plugs out. I can't get to the rear ones because of the intake manifold, I think that is. We'll have to come off to get to the rear ones, but I can take out some of the front ones to relieve pressure when I'm turning the crank. Let's get more of the pulleys and the belts and those kind of things off. Mario's out of Texas. He does a lot of thrifting, and he says he's doing a lot of eBay. He has a warehouse now, so that is pretty cool. So we're gonna get this bolt out. All right, now this balancer. I see a timing sprocket. We see a timing sprocket. New gloves already ripped. Removing some connectors. This one goes to this intake manifold, so I want to kind of remember that. But I'm trying to just make a little bit more room. Let me get this out of the way. Take these connectors off too. These cords are like all up in my way. Get out of my way, cords. I'm removing plugs just to try to make more room in here. I'm putting tape on the ends of them just to remind me to reconnect them. Some of them are just self-explanatory. Like that one's gray, obviously it's gonna go to the gray one. That one's black, it's gonna go to the black one. But lifting this up and out kind of gives me a little tiny bit more room to get this timing belt cover off. Top left timing cover is off. Wiring harness pressed into there. 1 bolt, 2 bolts, 3 bolts, 4 bolts, 5 bolts. There we go. We got a broken glove. I'm gonna set this to the side. Here's a plug coming off of the alternator. This is exactly what the AC plug looks like. I think you could stick a screwdriver into there, press down and then pull, or you can snap this top off, press down, and then separate it. This green one I think is the crank sensor. This one is the cam sensor. You'll want to disconnect these before you bump the engine, just in case you accidentally start it. This will, I believe this will stop it from starting. So I'm just disconnecting stuff, making more room. We're gonna take off the lower timing cover. Those cheap any angle socket adapters that I just bought from Walmart actually are coming in really handy with these tight spaces. So I highly recommend getting one of these if you don't already have one. This is something important to take note of. The crank sensor wire gets bolted. There's a bolt that goes to the cover right there, and then the way that it's routed is through this little corner right here. So I need to reinstall that just like I'm taking it off. But rear under timing cover is done. We're almost in there. All right, this is a dilemma that I'm having. I have got to the sensor. It was pretty easy to get to the sensor, so if I just had to change the crank sensor, that is what I would change right there, and then reroute it, obviously. Probably actually, yeah, that'd be it. This would be where you would change the crank sensor right there. Mine has no issues. Mine works. I did not buy the part, so I'm not replacing it, but I know how. If it ever breaks, how to do it. Now, that's what my hydraulic tensioner looks like. That thing's pressed all the way in. So I don't know if that's working. That could be broken. And I could be very lucky that my belt's not snapped. But I'm gonna get this thing in time and then do some marks. I still gotta get off this mount. I gotta take off this engine mount right here, and I think I gotta lift the engine. I'm gonna put my lift underneath the oil pan, I think, with like a piece of wood. I'm gonna crank it up like a 1/2 inch to take off the force, and then take off the engine mount bolts from the top, which are right there. You can also see on the cam sprockets, there is a mark right here, and then it's supposed to line up with these ticks right here. I gotta turn it over to get this up here. So I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna use the inside of that bearing that was destroyed in my pulley as a spacer with my crank bolt, and then screw that in. My timing mark is that dot right there, and I need it to line up with a notch right there, a little bit to the right of the sensor. So I'm gonna tighten this down. Freaking bolt keeps coming loose. I'm taking Mario's advice and removing some of the spark plugs. Somebody at some point has changed these. These are NGK iridiums. They actually look really good, so I'm not going to replace the spark plugs. I'm going to assume that the previous owner did the front and the rears, but I am going to pull them out just to decrease compression while I can turn over, so I can turn over the belt and get it in time. Thanks for the tip, Mario. Removing 2 spark plugs, and then I impacted on the bolt. It gave me enough tension on the bolt so I could turn it over counterclockwise without, because I was having the trouble. The bolt kept coming out when I would turn it counterclockwise. So there's too much pressure in the piston, there's too much pressure in the chambers, and the bolt wasn't on tight enough. So I just impacted it on, took off 2 spark plugs, and now I'm able to turn it over pretty easily. We are in time. And then right here is our timing marks. That sprocket, that tooth right there going back blue to red. And then back here you can't really see, but it should be in time, right? You can't see it with the camera, but I checked the timing marks with this mirror. See if I can get that. Anyways, it's hard to get on camera, but I can see that my marks are in line there. So now I'm gonna do some different marks in the belt. So I'm gonna make some marks on the teeth to where basically it's counting how many teeth in between these 2 marks are. I'm gonna mark the belt down to the sprocket. I'm gonna do it there. I'm gonna do it in the back. And I'm gonna do it down here by the crankshaft. I don't know why I'm making timing marks. I still gotta get this bracket right here off. We gotta jack up the engine, take off the bolt, jack up the engine, take off this mounting bracket. We'll do that right now. All right, the internet says when you raise your engine to use a board to spread the load across the oil pan. So that's what I'm doing. I got a 2x4 wedged in between there. I'm gonna lift it a 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch to lift off a little bit of the weight from the motor mount bolts up here. This could have stopped the project right here. I need a 17mm deep socket to get those top bolts off. So if I didn't have that, I would have been screwed. I'm glad I do. So we're removing this entire engine mount. There's 17mm bolt. It skewers it right through the center. That's what we're working on right now. Cool. More annoying electronic stuff to move to get this mount out. So this is the tricky part about removing this bracket. I gotta move the alternator out of the way. This bolt is banging into this air conditioning thing. I gotta lower the engine a little bit, let it sag. Let it sag a little bit. All right, letting this bad boy sag and trying to finagle this bolt out. I'm gonna have to just barely bend the AC lines and pull that bolt out. I needed 2 hands, but we got the bolt out. I had to lift this line up while it was sagging down the engine. Dropped the alternator, had to remove a bolt from this bracket right here, and it exposes this 1 bolt down here that we gotta get out. And there's a little bugger down there. I'm getting it with a breaker bar. Dang, thing's not budging. Here's what the workshop's looking like. Stuff spread everywhere. I mean, I got a general idea of what goes where. I kind of keep the bolts on the brackets when they come out. Like this nut goes to that pulley. These are all like underneath pieces. And then tools are spread everywhere. It is chaotic. I've been working on this thing probably for about 5 hours. Alternator's out of the way. I'm able to hit it from the bottom here. This thing is, sucker's on here tight. All right, now that I broke it from the bottom, now I hit it from the top. Man, I wish I got this freaking thing. Oh, I could just feel the bracket just wanting to come off now. Come on. That was the hardest bolt to get off in the whole project. All right, we are bracketless. All right, so this is the actual time you're supposed to do the marking and stuff. I already marked some of it from before. Did a mark there, did a mark there. Need to do some marks over here. It's really difficult to get in over here though. Bungee hand holding that stuff out of the way. We're gonna do a timing mark right here. Can't see it, but it's there. And I'd like to get another one on that back sprocket. Made a timing mark from the bottom on that last sprocket right there. I did 2 on the crank right there. All right, let's get this belt off. I bought these sprocket locks. Little did I know, they are too big. I can't even fit it in between right there. I think I'm gonna zip tie those 2 sprockets together just to hold them, and then I'm gonna cut the zip tie when I'm done. Somebody has had to have done this before. I did not see it anywhere, but my cam locks don't fit, so I just zip tied the 2 together. And I don't think they're gonna move now. So I put a zip tie on the back, zip tie on the front. Time to get this belt off. 12mm bolts, got that hydraulic pulley, got the hydraulic tensioner off. Everything's gonna loosen up now. Running out of light, timing belt's coming off. Had to put this guy in a vise to get this bolt off, and then this is the old one. That's the new one on there. Timing belt now comes right off. Okay, so my front cam lock worked perfectly fine because I took out those spark plugs like Mario said. So there's not a lot of pressure on those. Unfortunately, my rear one broke and they just got out of time. I'm gonna have to rotate them back. I did have to split these crank and cam sensor ends to get the belt off. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's the way that the belt is situated. It's like through one of the sensors, if that makes sense. And then there's the belt. You are toast. So when I put the new belt on, I'm gonna have to stick it over this sensor right here. I've been recommended this strategy by Mario, by other people I've seen do it. I have my old belt all marked. I'm going to mark my new belt with all the same marks that I made on it. My silver Sharpie stopped working. I have one leftover Japanese whiteout from Daiso. Thank you, Daiso. Thank you, Japan. All right, got my timing marks all set up. I got a messy garage. Let's try to get this bad boy back on. And I know that's my first sprocket, so I'm gonna drop the belt in like this. Before I do any of that, I gotta get the water pump out. I'm not looking forward to this. This is gonna be messy, super messy. That's the water pump right there. You can see the pulley. So I'm loosening up the water pump bolts based on the pattern on mine. So it looks like the way they built this is these are already pre-bolted. I have 3 mount bolts there, 3 mount bolts there. These are all 12s. I think that's a 14. The compressor always goes on when I'm talking. Mario said to call or text him with any questions, and by that other zip tie popping, I definitely had questions. So I called him. He says I can move them back the way that I think that they moved. So I'm gonna get a socket into there when I do that and move them back. But right now we're doing the water pump. I got 3 screws out. We got 3 more to go, and then we should be dropping a lot of water. And he said the water can get on the cam sensor perfectly fine, so I'm not worried about that. So thank you very much, Mario. This is a when someone tells me to text them or call them with any questions, I will text or call them with questions. Be sure of that. We're getting a drip. We got 1 more bolt, and then hopefully it will all fall in there. All right, 1 more bolt. Let's get her off. It's a 14. I'm gonna let it drip. Hopefully in here, most of it in there. I felt like Moses. I just parted the Red Sea of water pumps. While the water pump drains, you can grab a bite to eat, take a break. I decided to pull this idler pulley out and replace it with the one that's in the kit over here. That's a 14mm bolt to get that out. Old water pump's out, new water pump's gonna go in. There's like bugs and spiders in there. That's pretty nasty. There's also an O-ring that goes on right there. I'm gonna replace that as well. Get this gasket pried off. There's also one last bolt to get this water pump off right here, like a mounting hanger, so be aware of that. And there's our old metal gasket. The one that came in our kit is fiber, not metal. I wiped the inside of where the water pump is, and there's like a fly, a dead fly, and so much dirt and nasty. I'm gonna get all that cleaned out. And don't forget, there's also an old O-ring in there. Well, it is in the car, but I had to pull it out with this. And we're gonna install the new one. New one goes on. So much nasty in here. Ugh. And this is a paper gasket that came with my kit. My Uncle Dan said to use RTV. Mario said to use RTV stuff. I'm just going, I Googled a little bit because there was no instructions that came with it. I'm gonna put a little bit of, just a little bit of water pump of radiator fluid on it to make it stick down. That'll help me install it, and then I'm going to tighten the bolts in a pattern to kind of evenly do pressure on it and torque it down to spec. Water pump is on. It is a lot easier to hit it from the bottom. Oh, you can access pretty much all the bolts except for the top mounting bracket. Of course, the compressor goes on. The bolts on the water pump do have torque specifications, and they're not all the same. The biggest bolt right there, the big bolt is 33 to 50 Newton meters. The small bolts are 15 to 22 Newton meters, and the bolt on the bracket is 20 to 27 Newton meters. You do want to make sure that they are torqued to spec. That has to do with the way the seal works and not over tightening the bolt, stripping it into the aluminum. Water pump is on. It's time to start the timing belt. I'm going to start with my marks where I have on the crank and line them up and work my way around. I got it halfway on. It's not, this part isn't difficult that I've made those marks. Just lining up that belt perfectly to those marks. It's not hard. I got one clamp there helping me. The bottom I have a piece of plastic jammed in there helping me. And I'm gonna get the other half on. It's a little after 10. The frustration is phenomenal. I knew it was gonna happen. I'm leveling up as a person, leveling up as a mechanic. I got one, my cell phone battery's dead. I've been using that for light. I've got it timed from the crank around the first set of cam sprockets. The problem is these ones stayed locked perfectly fine with my zip ties. Those ones did not. I think it was because I did not have them. I know the rear sprockets are off by a couple of degrees from the markers, and I've read some stuff on YouTube and forums about that. That is, I think, why I should have doubled up with zip ties on the rear sprockets. That getting those retimed is what's frustrating me, because I twist it one way and there's like a spring, and then I twist it back and there's like another, and it springs over, and it's like there's a sweet spot, but it's so difficult to get the sweet spot. It is a frustrating mess. It really is. I'm gonna head to bed. Well, I'm gonna head to shower and then I'm gonna head to bed. I'll be up in the morning to work on this some more. If you want to keep working on the timing belt with me, check out tomorrow's video. And I did get some eBay sales that I got to pack in the morning. So I appreciate again Mr. Mario for speaking to me on the phone with some tips. But this is pretty raw. This is as raw as it gets. And I hope that this video out there will help somebody, or at least provide some reference. But it's all part of the journey. I'll talk to you guys in the morning. Bye.